And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Revelers Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. I am here tonight to cover the Rowdies like I usually do with Carlos, who is usually here with me. How are you doing tonight, Carlos?
James, I'm well. Every time I hear the intro, hyped up. It's a banger of a song, and I love the voice, the voice guy at the beginning. And I wish I had a voice as deep as for the radio. But James, that's why I'm on a podcast. I'm not on radio. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, 6:15 p.m. School time in Washington, D.C. And it's breaking cold. I woke up. It was 9 degrees when I woke up. Ridiculous. It's a stupid condition to live in. I don't know why, like people live in general. But it was snowing in Florida. That's a development. That's probably as exciting news as we'll get close to like home, I guess, and like Rowdies news. There's nothing going on the Rowdies front right now. Is what I'm hearing. Really kind of slow week for us. We had Lauren Like. I think it's all really downhill after the Cigar podcast, TBH. But here I have a Star Wars Lego set. If we get bored, I'm going to break out here. But there's transfer happening all around the league. So this is a lot of good moves happening. Some really interesting moves, to put it simply. There's plenty of things to talk about here on this evening. James, how's it going?
Well, Carlos, I don't know, but you are a little bit laggy right now, so I'll just put it out there for for everyone who's listening. You are not losing your mind. Carlos is a little bit in and out with that, so we'll try to figure that out. But as we go, we do have a little bit of USL transfer news. Unfortunately, none of it is related to the Rowdies. We have already covered the most recent transfer with the Rowdies, and so we are off to the rest of the league. Now, for myself, I will say I'm doing well. I have a mustache, which I'll just say is related to Gasparilla because that's coming up. And what better time than to have a mustache for Gasparilla, I guess. So, yes, that is going to be in the thumbnail when you see this on whatever social media you hopefully see this on. Because, of course, you as a listener must be following us on social media, whichever one you use. We are on everything. YouTube, of course, where you can watch it all, or if you just use your social media such as Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, some other one, I forget it, but either way, follow us there at RBLR James K. I'm RBLR James K. Follow us, the whole thing, at RBLR Rowdies. That's where we are. RBLR Sports is the big one, and you can follow both of those. But we are specifically at RBLR Rowdies, RBLR Sports for all of us. Carlos, I think that I have held us back a little bit here. Let's get into the big moves because there are some big ones around the league, especially with outgoing transfers from this league to other places, not even where you and I would have expected, honestly.
Yeah. I hope I get less laggy as this one. I've dialed tech support of my cell here. See how we do. We're live. This is live content, James. This is what happens. This is what happens in the world of live entertainment. More importantly than me having issues. This is a move that I think will make some Rowdies fans happy, I guess. This is just good. This is good. Wilson Harris moving out of and moving over to Maccabi Petah Tikva. Did I say that right, James? I have no clue. But the point is not in the USL. It's in the Israeli Premier League. So good for him, I guess. Even better for the Eastern Conference because this guy's somewhat of a sometimes, and I'm glad he is out our hair and into another league. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't know if the pronunciation of this is correct or not. Maccabi Petach Tikva was what I was going for. So, between the two of us, I'm sure that we have something workable here. But as you said, he has moved to the Israeli Premier League, and that's great for us over in the USL in the Eastern Conference, because that is a very, very good player that we don't have to deal with as much. And I'm personally happy to see that as a Tampa Bay Rowdies fan. Just to make everybody aware, Maccabi Petach Tikva. I've already messed up the name again. Maccabi Petach Tikva. They are the current Israeli Cup holders. So I guess that they are in the top flight. I think that they were 8th of 14 in this past league, and then, like I said, the league or the cup leaders. So yeah, they are probably a team trying to get on the up, if I had to guess. And fair enough to Wilson Harris. He's obviously had a very good couple of years in the USL. I am personally, though, just most excited about this move that Louisville has to go and find a replacement for him. Don't know who that's going to be. I hope, for our own sake, that they are less successful, obviously. But yeah, that's a pretty good one, I would say. Moving on to our next move in this list, we are highlighting another team that is in the Eastern Conference and therefore will be a hopefully less of a rival to us than Louisville has been in the past. It is Pittsburgh. This past season, they signed on loan Bertrand Jacqueson from Real Salt Lake in MLS. He has now made the move permanent and joined Pittsburgh for the 2025 season. That is an interesting little move in and of itself, and I will return to it. But beforehand, I would like to announce another one of their signings for anyone who is watching here. Possibly it might be someone that I went to school with. And with that being said, Pittsburgh have signed the captain of the Stetson Hatters soccer team. Well done to Stetson University. We have somebody gone professional. A-Sun Player of the Year, Charles All, has joined the Riverhounds along with their recent loanee, Bertrand Jacqueson. So, Carlos, I'm assuming that you are going to be a little bit more familiar with the first one as opposed to the latest one, the future rookie out of Stetson, maybe even the rookie of the year, who can say. But any opinions so far on Pittsburgh and their roster build?
I'll tell you, for those that might not be as familiar with Bertain Johnson, this is a guy who had a quick spell with Pittsburgh last season. Appeared in 8 games. I'm fact checking on another screen here. He had 5 goals and 2 assists in games. It's pretty ridiculous when you just think about that in terms of just per game or per game production from him. This will be a really good boost for them. I imagine for Pittsburgh, this was like their Spalding sanity season, yeah. Right? If you look at the numbers, it feels that way. So this is pretty big for them. Might have only noticed this if you were more closely paying attention to specifically Pittsburgh, because again, he joined the team September, it looks like, and then closed out the season with them. Had a great run in those 8 games. He started all 8 games. So again, if you haven't been paying attention or maybe haven't been paying attention to Pittsburgh, this could be maybe sneakily. I don't know if we count it as under the radar, just because there hasn't been big transfer news. But ordering kind of like the under the radar territory of big transfers this offseason. Really big, really big. If he keeps up the level of production he had over a longer period of time, it could be a really thing for Pittsburgh. Again, Spalding in terms of what the 8 games played in, 5 goals, 2 assists, kind of ridiculous. Really curious to see how this plays out for them. And this is if those numbers carry out over a long period of time, like a full season. Again, hopefully not right, obviously, but pretty exciting stuff for Pittsburgh. It could be a really big move for them. James, do you have anything else on Bertain Jacqueson? Curious what you have to say about the Stetson, because this is interesting. This is a local-ish, more close to home for you, obviously. This is kind of fun. I always love seeing the college soccer guys get opportunity in USL. Tell us about this connecting from him.
Yeah, I don't know too much about him. I haven't kept up with the Stetson soccer team as much as I probably did when I was there. Although, to be honest, I didn't go to a ton of their games at that time either. I will just put that out there and lay my cards on the table. But I believe that he is an attacking midfielder and will obviously contribute as a more central midfield presence. And we will see exactly what that turns into for him. It is, of course, a step up in quality, but he was the player of the year. Perhaps for the ASUN level, that means that he is good enough to contribute at the USL Championship, even if it's not necessarily as a starter or whatever. I'm not too sure exactly what the what the comparability is. Stetson is not necessarily the best team, I will say, but if this guy has made a name for himself such that he was able to win the awards, player of the year, what have you, then I think that it will probably bode well for his future. That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm going to wish him well regardless, and hope that he carries the Florida and the Stetson and all of these banners behind him as he goes on and does great things for Pittsburgh, except in the games when they play the Tampa Bay Rowdies. That is obviously what was coming. So yeah, keep that in mind, I guess, Charles. All when you play Tampa Bay, it's still the Florida team. So you gotta help us out at least a little bit. We will return to the Eastern Conference for our last team in the first segment before we get into the last couple of moves here, because Carlos, as you said, there is a bigger one out west actually that we might need to spend a little bit more time on. Two big moves from the same club out west, but the most immediate threat for Tampa Bay Rowdies players and fans is going to be Eastern Conference teams. So naturally, we need to turn to Charleston. Charleston went on a good run for the last 2 years now, oddly enough, since Lee Cohen went out there. Probably not that odd. Anybody who knows Lee Cohen knows he's good at his job. So, yeah, they will almost certainly continue with the higher level play than we have seen beforehand, reaching the playoffs, maybe making bigger games than that. To follow up, they have brought in they brought in more than three players, but these three players in particular do look to be promising. John Klein signed from St. Louis City's second team, so this is their MLS Next Pro team. Then there's Nanan Husu, who was originally with Loudoun United, moved to New Mexico United, and has now joined Charleston, and Douglas Martinez, who spent the last 2 seasons at Indy 11. These are all very good players from either around the USL or probably within the USL level. I believe that John Klein is going to step in and contribute pretty well, in fact. He is a more attacking midfielder, whereas Husu is a more defensive midfielder, originally from the Ivory Coast. Douglas Martinez is a more attacking player, usually out wide on the right, and originally from Honduras. Carlos, I believe that you have talked about Douglas Martinez in particular when we mentioned indie games in the past, obviously. So what are your opinions on either or any of these players from the outset?
John Klein is one I'm less familiar. So I'm glad you included that, so we get a feel for from. Again, it's not common to see like a B team MLS Next guy come into the USL, do well over there and slowly get established in the USL championship. So it's always interesting on the names that you might not be that familiar, come from your B teams and make their way into the USL championships. Douglas is an interesting player to me. He seems to like affect the game more than his numbers might show. Makes any sense? Because if you look back at four goals and 3 assists over 29 days, being an attacking player, not necessarily like anything special. Maybe you would even expect a bit more. A guy who started 20 games and appeared in 29, 4 goals and 3 assists. It's not bad, obviously. Whatever. You start 22 games, goals, 3 assists. I think you'd expect a little bit more. But I mean, he's a guy that I think when I've seen Indy 11 play, it feels like he creates chances, but a lot of those chances don't turn into the goals and whatnot. Indy 11 wasn't a super high scoring machine either, so maybe it's not entirely his fault that don't turn into goals, but certainly someone that can the game pretty well. I'm not sure where he fits into the Charleston scheme. Considering they haven't really a ton of players per se. But I mean, he'll certainly get minutes. I don't know if he's starting. I can't think off the top of my head who meeting with him for that kind of like right wing attacking spot. Either way, it'll be interesting. Could be someone that affects Charleston's squad in a positive way. Obviously, hope it's not too positive, but again, if Lee Cohen's making the move to go grab him, there's probably a vision play in conjunction with the rest of his front. So, any move that Lee Cohen makes is the way I'll put it. Knowing that he is capable of turning no-name players into star, USL championship level, or at least like great players. We've seen that with him on the Rowdies. I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys, or all three of them, become regular stars with Charleston. Sue is also pretty interesting to me. Had plenty of starts for New Mexico. I can't remember off the top of my head how much that would be. Let me fact check myself. He had 31 matches played, 25 starts for Mexico last season. A goal and an assist. But again, like defensive kind of midfielder, does a really good in the back. So I think he could be pretty disruptive for that Charleston center midfield. So all really interesting. Again, James, glad you included John Klein in here. The uneducated like myself, who might not really know him. But I think in particular Husu and Martinez could be big, particularly Husu. I think a starter for them, regular kind of rock in the central midfield, could be good for Charleston. Again, for the rest of us, but if that's as far along with like big signings, as soft signings, I'm okay with it too. Though I think it gives us some room to still maybe make another big signing and be in the race with them first. But yeah, good signings for them. I hope that's as good as it gets, though. I hope that's as good as it gets for and I'll be happy this offseason.
I think that's actually a pretty good point. Louisville losing their top striker and Charleston bringing in this trio plus a couple of others, of course. That probably puts us in relatively good stead at this very early stage, because we don't know what the final roster is going to look like. We don't know what our final roster is going to look like. We do have some pieces to add on our own end for sure. But that is relatively good for us. I think that so far we are doing what we need. I would certainly like to see a couple more signings, and especially a couple of specific places. I don't need to go through that right now, because I think, Carlos, you and I have actually talked about which places we would like to see players sign pretty much every episode, other than the interview with Sebastian Delgard. So
yeah, we probably talked about it in that interview too. To be fair, I think we did actually.
Yeah. So in fact, with that caveat, we have covered those those topics a couple of times. So I will just say that Louisville and Charleston, for now, we are coming for you. We're going to see how it continues to turn out, but I'm not shaking in my boots, if I can pull a line from SpongeBob here.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's not over intimidating yet. Yeah. I mean, these are good squads, particularly Louisville, and this, I guess, our before we transition to talking about some of the West Coast moves. This is a good place to summarize where we are, I think, so far with the East, or at least the top of the East. Because, again, we've talked about how Louisville's kept a lot of their squad. They haven't lost a ton of their really, really big name players. I think Wilson Harris might be the first one who's like, wow, like that's pretty big. Because Wilson Harris felt like their like striker last year. I mean, the year before he was pretty good, but last year he was producing really, really, really good numbers. Using this guy is, I think very, very big for Louisville inference, right? So this is great. It's good. That's a positive for us. He's out of the league, but don't discount Louisville to make a signing before the offseason is up. We've seen that before. I mean, they did go out and get good Rum, right? Now Rum is a Louisville player. So keep an eye on this. It'll be interesting. I could go on a bit if we wanted to about how I'm still that we haven't signed keeper. Just because I think maybe we're running out of options. That a lot of the good ones might be off of the table. But we'll see. A little scary that we've only really signed Lauren Ollie Bassett so far. But again, we could hash this out for a while over the next week or so. So hopefully we have some incoming. If you're listening on this live, I'd love to hear any thoughts on your end, because maybe I'm just being paranoid. Maybe I'm being a little over, maybe a little too negative in this sense, because it still is only January, James, but we are coming up on preseason and we don't sign. So that's where we're at. We got Lawrence Wyke in there to round out the back line, but we still need depth, a lot of spots. Mm-hmm. Maybe even a starter somewhere else in this 11, but we're gonna need to make some moves, if nothing else for depth. Other than the goalie spot where we literally don't have anyone yet. So we'd have hashed this out a little bit, but I think it's still worth bringing up because we are. I think next week, by the time we record next week, preseason should be underway, for most teams. So keep that in mind. Again, like you said, Louisville, Charleston, we're kind of coming. I'm not particularly scared of staying now that they lost Mark Hannick. To be honest, that was a lot scare factor. To be honest, they still have some great players on. Aaron Malloy is unfortunately still there. A great combo with Nanan Hasu, who we just talked about. So hey, let's keep an eye on this. There's still a lot of time to be making some moves here, but like you said, not particularly intimidated by Eva or Charleston squad anymore. Now that they lost two of their really big players. So this is for us.
Yep, and Nick Markanich, by the way, has not made his debut since he has made the move over to Spain. But to be fair, it is probably only a couple of games in that he would have even had a chance. So I'm assuming that he will get his chance coming up. Now, before we get to the West Coast teams, where we will probably get to one of the biggest stories tonight, I want to say liking and subscribing is free. But if you think you might need some new threads this year, you can support our podcast a little bit more by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com, checking out all the designs that we've got cooked up. You can use the promo code COYR for 10% off of your order when you find something that you like. Notice I said when. I believe that if you do check it out, you'll get something there that you like. So please do just look at the shop, and we will see you in your RBLR gear, hopefully at some Sun games, some Rowdies games, wherever we end up seeing you this year. Now, let's get to the other USL news that stood out for both of us because, Carlos, there is a Western Conference. As much as we try to ignore it, it still comes back to bite us every so often. Yeah. And I guess that means that we'll have to talk about it here. One of the ways that the West Coast bit us last year is that they actually won the USL championship. Colorado Springs won the whole thing, beating Rhode Island in the final, 3-0 actually, so relatively handy there. But they have not tried to rest on their laurels and in fact went out and got a couple of new players. So there are two, or at least one that I wanted to bring up here. Garvin Methuselah, who is originally a Canadian player, plays for Haiti, where I believe one of his parents is from. He is a center back who was signed from the Canadian Premier League. This is a pretty good player. I always liked Garvin Methuselah from when I could see him. There's not a lot of Canadian Premier League action on the TV, you might be shocked to hear, but so when I was able to see him, I was pretty impressed with Garvin Methuselah, and I think that is a good move for their back line. Additionally, they brought in Levante Johnson, who is a Canadian striker. He was not brought in from the Canadian Premier League, but actually from Vancouver Whitecaps in MLS. So those are two pretty good players that they have brought in. And I think that they were good ones to highlight alongside Akeem Ward. If anybody remembers the name Akeem Ward, he is mostly a right back who spent the last 2 seasons with Memphis. When Memphis folded, obviously he needed a new team, and Colorado Springs came in and said, we will be that new team. So those are 3 big boosts that I can see to their squad, which mostly maintained a lot of the players from last year, a couple of losses here and there. but I think that they are adding and they're trying to improve for the upcoming season again.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really have much else to say on this one. These aren't players I'm too familiar with, James, so I'm glad you took the lead on this one, or else I'd be kind of bumbling about this. So I'm going to not like I know anything about these guys and say listen and trust him on this one.
All right, I will take that, and with the added confidence of Carlos's review, there, I will move on to the next team that we were talking
All the
about.
confidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
For San Antonio. San Antonio have made a couple of signings themselves. Alex Crognale is probably one of the big ones, literally and metaphorically. He is 6'5" and a longtime center back for Birmingham Legion. He will be joining San Antonio for this upcoming season alongside a couple of players that I liked. Nicky Hernandez, who was previously with New Mexico United for the last 2 seasons, as well as Alex Grieve. Alex Grieve is probably the most far out of left field for this one. He previously played in the Scottish Premier League and moved to the Irish League. So kind of interesting there. And he has joined San Antonio. Alex Grieve is a New Zealand international player. So yeah, these are a couple of other interesting signings, but I think the biggest ones obviously are going to be, again, Alex Crognale and Nicky Hernandez, who definitely both have a lot of experience within the USL. Between them, I'm sure well over 100 appearances, and gonna improve that team.
Yeah, always a few random signings, and I feel like Grieve kind of falls into that category. It's interesting. Hasn't really played in the USL before, if I'm mistaken. The last time he played on a team was, get this, the Cincinnati Dutch Lions in League Two. So that was the last time he was in the States. He's coming from Bohemians in Ireland. Pretty big team in the League of Ireland, but take that with a right. 11 appearances over there, 0. He's a forward, so not great numbers for him. Obviously over there, he was on loan to United before that, from St. Mirren, where he had one goal in 13 appearances. Before that, again, St. Mirren appearances, 8 goals in the Scottish First Division. So, all that being said, this is one of those signings that I maybe has some upside to it, but I don't really see it from the numbers, if that makes any sense. Could be a positive. Certainly, I'm not like discounting. I wouldn't say like I know, everything about Alex Grieve off the bat and his playing style and what you can bring to the squad, but off the bat doesn't look like it should be too impactful for them either way. So yeah, we're gonna solve it. Carlos's opinion based off of the numbers I'm looking at on FotMob and all the other soccer websites that Peter's not a soccer website, but you know what I mean. Crognale, I think, is the bigger signing there out of the two. Gonna be a solid rock for that had several seasons now at Birmingham where he's been a pain in the butt of every striker who's played against him. That could be a pretty big piece for San Antonio. And I'm sure their fans are excited about that because it's going to tighten up a defense and a little bit shaky in the last couple seasons. And certainly has San Antonio FC that we've come to no, maybe not love, because they're really good. They're really good when they're hard to play against. But San Antonio that we've come to know with the last couple seasons is different from the San Antonio that has played really good soccer. So I think Crognale will help them back to that for sure. Grieve, jury's out on him, but player, interesting. No lie about that. So James, keep an eye on him. Again, I think this is one of those random signings I like to pick up on and maybe note for the rest. The Rowdies had a couple of those over the last couple of years. But one will be one I note in my little notebook I keep handy halfway through the season, so everyone can tell me how wrong, or I'll be right and I'll reference this podcast. One player, James Grieve, right, that I mentioned early on, right? He has 0 goals halfway through the season still. So we'll see. We'll check in halfway through the year when we're in Dog Guard again.
Yes, exactly. When he's on, we will also have a little segment set aside for this one player.
For Alex Grieve. Yeah, I like it. Okay, James. This is the one I think we've been wanting to talk about a bit more here, because I think it's fascinating. A couple fascinating things for this club that never ceases to capture my attention, even when things seem to get a little bit too boring. This club seems to do something fun. James, do you want to know what's happening out in the great state of Nevada?
Yes. In the great state of Nevada, we have a lot going on, obviously, but some of it is related to soccer. We're not just building very expensive trains, which I am still happy about because go Brightline.
There you go.
Yes. The team has made several moves, some in, some out, some coming, some goings, and made some weird headlines along the way. For starters, for a club record fee, they have sold Jamaican international Corey Bennett to Kuwaiti club Al Nasser SC. That's a very, very out of left field move. A very weird combination of a very weird combination of phrases in there.
Yeah, not to be confused with Al Nasser with two S's of the Saudi Arabian league where Cristiano Ronaldo plays.
Right.
This is Al Nasser, one S, and it's in another country, and they are not as good as the Al Nasser with two S's with the infamous Potato. Probably not. Still super random. I love this. This is James, by the way. Corey. Okay. Let's just none of these. When people say these words were in the like, this is absurd. Just a insane phrase. Corey Bennett, the Jamaican forward from Vegas Lights in the United States, United Soccer League, Reki to Kuwaiti club Al Nasser SC. I just run that back again. It was wild the first time I saw that. Good for Las Vegas. They got a good money boost going there. A team that seems all the injections they can get. Again, they were much more competitive last season, so that's great. I'm sure this money won't be unwelcome to them to maybe go out and make their next big splash signing. But yeah, this is wild. Pretty fun. James, what do we even say about this? To be honest, it's funny. I just don't really know where to go from there. Yeah. And good for him. Good for Corey Bennett. He's probably making some good money over there. But for him,
yeah, I definitely good for Corey Bennett. I will state that from the outset. But yeah, Las Vegas is just a very interesting team since this. They were not interesting before the takeover. They were more of a laughing stock, let's say. So I'm happy that they are at least making headlines about players being sold and bought and whatever, as opposed to headlines like, "Are they going to play this year?" Last year, they brought in a couple of very interesting players that I thought were just weird choices. Like, how did they end up in the middle of the desert? There were some from USL championship, so that makes sense, like Valentin Noel, Charlie Adams. There were others from outside, like Elias Gartig, like Von Coville, who is a former U.S. youth national team player, Gennaro Negro, who is not a former U.S. youth national team player, although I thought he was. This year, they're kind of going for something else. And yeah, with the money that they made from selling Corey Bennett, they have brought in a couple of other players, although these ones they didn't have to pay any transfer fee for, I should note. Patrick Leal, another youth American, not national team player, who was with the New England Revolution second team. So he joins them. He's got an interesting history if anybody wants to look him up. Knight Pickering, he is a former U.S. youth national team player, at least at the U19 level. So that's pretty interesting. I think that he is eligible. Yeah, he would be eligible for the Under-20 World Cup that's happening this year if he were to be good enough to make that team. We'll obviously see how it goes for him at Las Vegas. He is a player that I wanted the Rowdies to sign because I like when we sign U.S. youth national team players. And Nate Jones is coming in on loan from Colorado Rapids. That's a very good signing as well. Carlos, the other thing that we have not mentioned so far in all of this is that Las Vegas currently, well, no, they do have a coach. They got rid of their coach from last season because he was bought out and went to New Mexico United, who had a great run in 2024. Who did they bring in to replace this man who did so well with them? For any Rowdies fans, this is going to be very surprising to hear, but it is the coach for the Miami FC in 2024. Antonio Nocerino. Now, I just don't quite get the move because I haven't seen him succeed as a manager, and I don't know what he was like when he was with Orlando City B. So maybe he was doing better there. Probably, as Carlos is saying, probably not that good. But he certainly didn't do well last year, and that's with a very heavily constrained roster because they're not that good. But it's just pretty weird. It's pretty weird to me.
This is. I just want to recap Antonio Nocerino's very young coaching career to be first like professional head coaching position with the professional team was unfortunately with the Miami FC. I don't know why. First, I mean, I don't know why you would take that job as your first head coach gig. To be honest, just I think career move. I'm surprised. This might be the most I've ever seen a coach fall upward. Makes any sense? I mean, he went from a 3-win EFC team last year that was on the verge of the worst USL teams of all time. Granted, there was a team that literally a single game. A 3-win Miami FC team in however many games we play in the USL Championship, and then fell a Las Vegas team that actually has a lot of great weapons and seems to be building something pretty promising. Fascinating. It's a fascinating move. I know I've seen some like we can call coaching career by re-mentioning how bad the situation is in the FC in terms of like the players they were working with. I mean, they're the horsements they turned to was literally Joey Desart off of the Rowdies bench.
Yeah, right.
Early on the season, right? So, I mean, it kind of tells you where that there really wasn't much going on over there, but 3 wins is insane, man. I don't know, and I'm sure the Las Vegas front office isn't like ignoring that. Obviously, they must see something that we don't as faux journalists on the podcast, right? Talking heads. I'm curious to see how it goes. I mean, he has been associated with Orlando City, which generally like him, but I do feel pretty bad that his first gig was Miami FC. That is a terrible deck of cards to on your first professional coaching gig. Terrible. So that being said, let's take this as a Nocerino fresh start. Right. There is something being built in Las Vegas. Fascinated by the fact that the Las Vegas front office believes in Nocerino to be the culture team club builder. Like we're basically in the Las Vegas like period of being a serious team. Seeing Nocerino to lead that team into business and competitiveness. It's fascinating. It really is, because he had 3 wins last year in an entire season. It's a little funny just because of the absurdity of it, but it's also kind of interesting. And I'm curious to see how well he does with this team. I'll be with them, I think. Yeah, because they deserve to have a serious club over there. They seem to have a pretty interesting mix of players. And they have some money, apparently. I mean, from record, Kuwaiti club Al Nasser with 1 S and not 2 S's. Fascinating. So this will be the team on this year, maybe above all the other Western Conference, just because they look pretty fun. There's a couple stories. There's more than a few. And I think the Nocerino one is going to be kind of the one to watch next year. I don't know if there's like a USL like comeback coach of the year or was. It seems like Nocerino is probably an odds-on favorite for that. Like he has a great base here to succeed. And if he doesn't, I think we kind of know his coaching career might quickly come to an end. If he goes from a Miami 3 team, not being able to do anything with a pretty good Las Vegas squad, really know where you go from there. To him, I'm rooting for them because they're in the Western and we only play them once. So I hope they do well. It's a fun team. It looks like a team. and I hope it to fruition in the way they want, because again, they have been laughing stock. Maybe that's a little mean, James, but I think you're kind of right. We've only really looked to them because of like the fun halftime gags where they bring like a Ama onto the field and have a home run derby with that one really famous legend baseball player that I can't remember who came briefly, right? Anyway, it's a weird team. I hope they become less and a bit more serious. Really, I hope Notre Dame has a bit of success over there because of it. Because again, he should have a fresh start. Miami FC does not first coaching job.
Yeah, it's all very weird.
three wins. 3 wins is ridiculous. I mean, like it sounds there should be no next step for a coach who had 3 wins, but I think we can heavily caveat it by diving into Miami FC's situation. So, yeah, good luck to him. Truly, you deserve a better, fresh start than what you were dealt, Mr. Antonio Netra.
Yes, I think that's fair. So, yep, there's a lot to watch out for in Las Vegas this year. Some quick other hits here. Orange County brought in Usman Sila and Grayson Duty. Those are 2 names that might not stand out too much to the USL crowd. Usman Sila is a former Clemson standout, and I think he was an MLS Generation Adidas player, but he didn't quite work out, so he is looking to move on to the USL level. Again, people who are those kind of in between quality levels for MLS, they usually do pretty well in USL. So that is a player to keep an eye out on in the wing spot for Orange County. And then the last thing that I wanted to say about USL moves, we actually are returning to the Miami FC. They made their first move of the offseason, bringing Bolu Akinyote back to the club. That means they are at least sticking around. They do have a front office. They do have a team coming together, and we will see exactly what that turns into. But I guess it's good that, again, we are not losing a team because we have lost other teams, including Memphis, of course. And anytime that we lose a team in the USL or really well anywhere, it's not good news. So I'm glad that they're sticking around. Anybody in NISA should head over to USL. I'll just dump that in here one more time. And Carlos, you got anything else before we move into our extra time segment?
I'll give you one Orange County signing, by the way. Hagar, Georgetown legend, and kid who's in my class, made it a one-time famous to my sophomore year at the Zeta Psi party during Octest, and it was so fun. Shout out to him if he's listening for whatever reason. He's taken us out. He was originally a player of a team that I won't try to necessarily pronounce Stabæk in the Norwegian First Division. Fun fact: the coach while he was briefly there was Bob Bradley. Didn't know he was still punished, but he was over there. Anyway, Chris Hagar, really solid attacking midfielder, was over there. Came back to the U.S. on loan to Orange County last season. Had 14 appearances with had several pretty good games. Kind of got the U.S. soccer radar after making his debut a couple of years ago and getting on the minds of folks. Made his way back in USL circles with some great performances for Orange County in his 14 appearances. Again, he had 1 goal, whatever, James. I can't find it online right now with my left hand. He had 1 goal, and I think he had a couple in his 14 games. But my point is, he did enough time contract with Orange County this year, who him out of Norway back into the U.S. So this could be a big move for them. Chris Hagar has so much upside still. I think he hasn't reached his full potential. He's 23 years old, very, very young midfielder, who's just getting better and better. The more he gets minutes. Really excited for him. Again, he's a Georgetown guy, so always rooting for them. Could be good for Orange County. Hope he makes his way kind of back to the starting lineups and back to 90-minute games, because he really deserves it. He really does. He's a great player, but I think will be back starting for a team soon.
All right, that is a good note to end our transfers on. Really quickly on the extra time, again, I want to highlight that we will have the Hot Wings Challenge with Eureka coming up here. We don't have a date, but when we do, you will hear about it on our social media. And we are getting out of here a little bit early tonight because the USMNT has a game against Costa Rica. If you are watching this live, if you are listening to it, you should already know the score of that one. Right now, we only know the score of the first game, a 3-1 win versus Venezuela. These are just friendlies. It's all about getting new guys into the team, seeing if any of them are good enough to possibly compete for a spot with the A team, let's say. So that is what I am going to go and watch. But thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate when you do. Please follow us at RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, all your social medias, wherever you are. Again, that is RBLR Sports, specifically RBLR Rowdies for us. I am at RBLR James K on Twitter. Carlos, what about you?
At Carlos 10 on Twitter. There's more off-season news incoming, and we will be sure to talk about it. So, yeah, give me a follow. We'll chat. Definitely follow James. He tweets some good stuff sometimes too, I guess. But yeah, James. I'm glad we got some content in here, man. It feels like it's been slow for the Rowdies, and I'm really hoping there's a lot more to talk about for our green and gold soon.
Yes, absolutely. And when there is, then you can get it from us on the social media and get all our takes on the players involved and see where it's coming up. But if you would like to hear us, you will need to like and subscribe to our podcast. You can get the full experience on YouTube. But if you just want to listen, we are on the Spotify and iHeartRadio apps, Apple and Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. Thank you for tuning in this week for another week closer to the 2025 season. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.